Hey, what's up, everybody? Sean here with the fitness journey update for week 11. So, some key important information here. So, week 11 during my fitness journey essentially took place between the 15th of June and the 21st of June, 2025. Anybody watching my videos here may have seen me doing the short videos, may have seen a little bit of my background, see what I wear as I'm doing this brown shirt. It shouldn't come to any surprise for anybody that I'm in a deployed environment right now, and that particular time frame, there was a lot going on in the Middle East. On Friday, the 13th, that's when Israel decided to go ahead and launch attacks on Iran. So this week for the fitness journey just started 2 days after that. As a result, as this week went on, I decided it was pertinent to not release these videos in real time like I normally do. So this one was supposed to be released on the 21st or the 22nd, Saturday or Sunday that week. But for operational security reasons, I did not go ahead and do that. I'm still doing everything to the best of my ability. However, I'm not going to actually release this officially until much later when everything cools down. Now, that being said, a lot has happened even since then. And while I intended to record the video on the 21st, it didn't happen. The 22nd, it didn't happen. And right now, today is the 27th. And I'm just getting to the point of recording the video recapping my week 11 efforts. It's ironic in that when I put my short video and said that I would not be releasing any more videos for the time being because the situation changed, that was before we knew anything was actually going to happen with the US being involved and striking Iran. So that just happened to be a coincidence. I had literally no idea that was going to happen, but obviously that made significant changes. So with that, you're going to see some changes in here that are a little bit outside the norm for my week to week. There's was security posture updates that involved closing down the gym, walking, changing our posture so that we basically carry our 40 pounds of battle rattle everywhere we go and wear it, closing down the time that the food is available. I won't go into too much detail with that, other than it had significant disruptions to week 11. So, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So, the week, surprisingly, with this kicking off a couple days after Israel attacked Iran, started off pretty normal. You can see that I continued to do my regular strength training routine, made a little bit of progress by adding in one rep for a lot of the different exercises as we get through, and made some relatively normal progress. I did get some steps in there, but by this time we were starting to look at limiting outside activity, carrying around our weights with us, our weighted vests, the body armor at all times. So you can't really run outside in body armor. So most of my exercises consist of walking outside. Food was still fairly normal. By this time, all of the food was taken to takeout only. Nobody's sitting down in the facilities, basically taking what I can get and bringing it back to the room. But other than that, food is fairly normal. I did find one of the dining facilities that was open that had dates on a fairly regular basis. And I determined that I absolutely love dates. So you'll see that a lot of the meals this week incorporated those. Just wanted to throw that in there as well as an observation. But try to get a lot of protein as much as possible. Didn't really do much this week in terms of the grain, but as far as vegetable, protein, fruit in general, those are usually pretty good. Dairy usually pretty good with including the milk. So day one here was actually Father's Day. So they had steak for us for dinner. So that was a little bit of relief, a little bit of shrimp to go with it, a little bit special there. Day two, that's where we do the row machine. So sit down and go for 30 minutes, also jumping, roping for 30 minutes, and boxing classes. So Tuesday was actually fairly normal. A lot of the extra steps that came in there was just because moving stuff back and forth between different locations. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That was also a fasting day. So by this point, I was still sticking strictly to the fasting diet, alternate day fasting. So day 3 was, again, another day where we do the exercises for the arms. As you can see here, this is basically the first day in the rotation for the different exercises. So the bicep curls, the shoulder press, T raises, squats, those type of exercises. Days were getting long here, 12 hours. With that, it started to draw on me. It's wear me out. So with that, didn't really have a lot of extra strength to go through and push for those extra reps. Just tried to get as much done as possible. So this was day 3 that took us to about Wednesday. In general, up to this point, other than food being takeout only, still keeping strong with the diet. Day 4 is where things really started to change. That's where, again, day 4 was the day where we're going to do the bike machine, the stepper machine. But by this day, there were higher indications that something that it was unknown if the US would be involved. It was unknown if Iran would preemptively strike US bases. So we took extra precautions and shut down the gyms. So with that, couldn't have access to the bike machine, couldn't have access to stepper machine. So basically all I could do was walk around the compound with a 40-pound vest on, and that's what I use for my exercise. Day 4, no major changes there. I was still consisting with fasting, drinking water, drinking tea, drinking coffee. Day 11 or day 5 of week 11, we found a gym in a warehouse that was still open. I hadn't officially been shut down because it's hidden in an office. So I was able to use that for at least a real quick exercise for deadlift, squat, and bench. Wasn't really focused on trying to do too much as far as gains, just trying to maintain. You can see the food we had here. Again, throwing in a whole bunch of dates there just because they're awesome tasting. They taste like caramel. If you ever get a chance to try some, I encourage you to do that. But other than that, the food is generally the same as before. Day 11, again, that was supposed to be an outside day where I do the 1.5 mile run. I'm not going to do that with 40 pounds of body armor. So didn't do that, but still was able to do the sit-ups, push-ups, arm circles, jumping jacks. At this point, I had a slight accident and dropped my watch. That was counting all my steps. So I have no clue exactly how many steps or miles I did because at that point it was my only tracker and it no longer worked. And then finally, actually, that should be day 6 food, nothing there. And then day 7, the gym that we did find was fairly limited in what they did have. So they did have the bench press machines or set up. They did have some dumbbells, but they didn't have a lot of the additional machines you would use for like the pull downs. They didn't have a leg press machine. Didn't have the machine you would use for the cables for upright row. So a lot of the exercise I couldn't necessarily do, but I did what I could. And again, couldn't necessarily calculate my steps or miles. So day 7, this was Saturday. And again, that was the last day of any type of sense of normalcy. Overnight, that night is when everything changed, and that'll be reflected in week 12's video. But in general, still try to stick to the diet. It was considerably hard at this point. Looked forward even more to the eating days because I enjoy food, but also the extended hours of working, carrying around 40 pounds of weight everywhere I go was starting to drag on me. And then from this point, I decided during the next week, I was going to change things up and stop doing alternate day fasting. But again, we'll have more on that in the week 12 video, which again will be released long after everything is over and it's no longer a type of security concern or considerations. But you can see the food we had here, still trying to stay fairly healthy, but also going in for a little bit of dessert for that stress relief that came in. All right, so the reveal here actually made significant progress here. I think some of that may have been attributed to carrying around a 40 pounds of extra weight each day for everywhere we went. also while sticking to the alternate day fasting regimen. But also, when the gym closed, there were 2 days in there where I didn't have the ability to get an accurate weight of myself. The only scales that I've been using were at the gym. It was till Saturday until I was able to go and find another scale at the local store that was still open and picked one up. And so the average here was based off of the 5 days instead of 7 days. But if you look at it, you can see that the weight based off of those calculations was at 161 for my total weight, which means from last week, or at least from week 10, I lost 4.9 pounds, almost 5 pounds, putting me at almost 24 pounds almost since where I started. Did happen to lose another half inch on the waist. And then again, that takes it down to about 5.5 inches from the start. Now, again, you can see here if you look at the profiles, especially up from the side, that the gut is considerably shorter sticking out than, especially compared from the beginning. Face seems a lot thinner. You can start to see a little bit of definition for my arms. So overall, I was happy with the progress being made, all things considered. Now, as a bit of a preview for the next video coming up for next week, again, I did make the decision to put off alternate day fasting just because of the increased level of stress, the increased level of effort going on. And with that, I decided, it was a couple of weeks ago, I made the decision that I was going to start taking creatine to boost performance, the energy that's within the muscles, that type of stuff. I was originally going to wait till after week 12 to do that, finish the month strong before making any changes. However, I figured it's as good of a time as any if I'm going to be canceling the alternate day fasting piece of it. Creatine gets absorbed better when you have food. So I'm going to use week 12 to do the essential loading phase, eating every day, taking creatine 4 times a day, 5 grams, so about 20 grams of creatine a day to do the loading. And then by the time week 13 comes around, it should be ready, hopefully, to go back to normal. We don't know necessarily how long it'll take for all this to get back to normal. Right now, again, as I mentioned before, this is being recorded on the 27th of June, and the ceasefire is in effect. This is well after week 11 finished up, but ceasefire is in effect, and some of the facilities are beginning to open up again. So be able to go to the gym. So hopefully we'll see week 13 at least start looking a little bit more like normal. Week 12 is technically almost done here by the time I'm recording this, is significantly different than any of the other weeks, but I'll talk about that during that video. I'll also have the 3-month recap going out at the same time. So until next time, that's all I got.